Hello, my name is Dr. Andrew Allen from Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, and that was the first etude for the 2018-2019 school year for ATSSB All-State. I hope that that performance helped shape your view of this piece a little bit. I just have a few comments, a few suggestions that hopefully are going to make your time studying this piece leading up to your region, district, area auditions a little bit easier, a little bit more efficient. So first of all, this is what we often refer to as the lyrical etude. I'm going to say in the next video, sound is always of paramount importance. You have to get a beautiful sound on saxophone or any other musical instrument. If you want a little bit more information about how to get your best sound on the saxophone, check out my YouTube page, scroll down, you're going to find a video called Improving Saxophone Tone, Improving Saxophone Sound, and that's going to give you some pointers about all of that. In addition, hopefully you noticed that I was using vibrato, an undulation in my sound. It's absolutely part of a saxophone sound, an accepted saxophone tone. If you don't know how to use it, it's jaw-based. Again, I have another video on saxophone vibrato that you can check out to learn a little bit more about that. Getting to this etude in particular and a few things about it. Number one, unlike the other etude in this set, this has a wide array of dynamics. You have pianissimo, piano, going all the way up to forte, with lots of gradations in between, lots of crescendos and decrescendos. One of the errors that I hear most often is people get the technique under their fingers and then they completely ignore all of this beautiful music-making opportunity that exists within the piece. So you need to do everything at once. My biggest piece of advice to you would be to start with, when you're learning this, learn it in small chunks, maybe a bar at a time, and go ahead and do all the dynamics, go ahead and do all the articulations, go ahead and do all of the detail work as you're learning the notes, because otherwise it's always going to be this tacked on kind of thing that isn't going to sound right, and we need to have all of this music within the piece. Something else in terms of dynamics that I often hear, I hear students taking away air support when they're going to softer dynamics. It's something that you may accidentally do in band quite often. We can't do that. No matter what dynamic you're playing with, it needs to be with proper air support, proper air speed, and it needs to fill up whatever room that you're in. I can play a full piano, I can play a full forte, and what I prefer you guys to think about when you're doing dynamics, maybe for the louder dynamics, think cooler air, maybe for the softer dynamics, think warmer air, but the whole time think about keeping the same charge in the airstream going forward. Something else to think about overall in this piece. This piece requires you to count the eighth note, and the operative word there is count. You guys need to have a system because otherwise you're going to get confused on some of these rhythms. They're 30-second notes. Maybe you've never seen that before. A lot of people get tied up in longer note values. So whatever counting system that your band director uses, you need to get very serious about using it in this piece. I like 1-eanda, 2-eanda. As a result, there are going to be 8 beats in each bar, since it's in common time, 4/4, and we're counting the eighth note. That means there are 8 beats in each bar, and you need to have a way of delineating that. Don't be afraid in the early stages of writing in little tick marks to show you where the beats are so you don't get confused. I don't want you just listening to my recording and other recordings and just copying what we're doing. I want you to be able to figure this out for yourself, so please do that. Now getting to particulars in this piece about fingerings and some other technique things that you can do to make this a little bit easier. Starting in measure 4, we have this pattern. That we have these D's and then we switch to a C sharp. Now, you may play that with a very normal fingering for C sharp. That has a tendency to stick out and not quite sound right. We all know that that middle C sharp, right in the middle of the staff, has a tendency to be a little out of tune. And also it has a tendency to not quite sound like the other notes in that register. So I have an alternative fingering for you. We call it covered C sharp, and we're just going to use it for that middle C sharp right in the middle of the staff that we play so often as an open note. So instead of the open note, I want you, and this is going to sound weird for a second, put your thumb on your octave key, put your ring finger where it normally goes and press down, and that's going to be your new standard fingering for C sharp. it would seem like it would lower the pitch, which isn't what we want on this note, but it actually is going to open up this little octave vent, the wrong octave vent for that note, so it's not going to make it go up the octave. It's just going to raise that pitch a little bit. And at the same time, putting that finger down, covering that third finger, is going to veil that sound just a little bit and make it a little more matchy-matchy with the stuff around it. I actually use a slightly different fingering in this bar 4. Since I'm going from those Ds, since I have that nice little open tone hole that's raising the pitch anyway, I can actually leave my right hand down going from the D. And especially since I'm moving that quickly, there's not going to be any real noticeable difference in intonation, and it's just going to make that bridging all the easier for you. Couple other things to think about. Graces often tie up students. You guys sometimes get really nervous about grace note patterns and other figurative patterns that are added on to these pitches. Don't worry about it. Now, you have to do them. Every once in a while I hear a student come in for an audition and they just don't do them. And of course, that's not what we want. We want you guys to be able to play everything in the piece. That's how you're going to be successful. So here are a couple pointers. The first time it pops up in measure 5, we have this little grace note pattern with all these 30 seconds, and it looks really, 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 really scary. Don't let it scare you. You can handle this. First of all, try the pattern without. Just make sure that you can play it absolutely in time. With the crescendo and with all the other nice stuff with the articulation. Once you're very, very, very comfortable with that, then just isolate the little part of that bar that includes the grace pattern. The graces in all of these etudes that you'll ever do for All-State, they happen before the beat or the division of the beat that's coming next. So, make sure that the D sharp is on the beat at the start of those 30 seconds. And you're just going to steal a little tiny bit of time from the E for that little F sharp E grace pattern. Easy. You can do that, no problem. Continuing on. In measure 9, you're going to see something that may look a little new to you guys. Just a little bit. We've got this little curly Q sideways S thing that we call a turn or a repetto. And it's a very particular kind of grace pattern. So, listen to it one more time. So I start on the F. Start on the F. I go up to the next note in the key, which is G. I go back down to F. I go to the next lower note in the key, which is E natural, and then back to F. And then I continue on. Now, that's all going to happen within the space of that one beat that the F happens on. And then when those next graces come, don't make a big deal out of them. Never accent a grace note unless the music actually tells you to, which this does not. It's just a little thrown on thing before the next beat. Measure 11. This is the first time that we've really had a B flat in this piece. It comes up as a accidental here. And I find a lot of people are still stuck on the 1 and 1 B flat. I almost never use that fingering. Why? It doesn't sound good. It has a strange tone quality. It's very often much lower than we want a B flat to be. So I normally teach 2 B flat fingerings as being acceptable, both in the middle register and in the next register up. One is the side B flat. So that's just like an A. You put your first 2 fingers down, and then with the side of your right hand index finger, you're going to hit this lowest side key. Hopefully you guys are familiar with that already. The other one is bis B flat. So with your index finger in your left hand, you're going to hit the B key, and with the same finger, you're going to hit that little key right below it. You're going to hold them down. This is the bis key. You're going to hold both of those down, and that's your B flat. Generally speaking, if you're going stepwise, if you're going one note to the next, to the next, to the next, up or down, normally the side B flat works the best. If you're leaping around, normally the bis B flat works the best. Good rule of thumb there. So when we hit bar 11, I really like to use the side B flat. It's going to make that repetto a lot easier. is your side B flat, and it's just like we had before. B flat, the note above it in the key, which is C, back to the B flat, the note below it in the key, which is A natural, back to the B flat. Let it all be within that beat and then continue on. Next thing, when we hit measure 12, that B flat, I would say, since we're leaping from the F, it's a little awkward to try to get that hand over. I'd use the best B flat there. Makes it a little bit easier. Next, measure 13. You can use that covered C sharp again. And again, I would use the same fingering that we used before, keeping that right hand down. It's going to make that a little bit easier for you. Finally, a couple little weird things in bar 15. You can use a normal covered C sharp, not the one we've been using with the right hand, but just a normal covered C sharp. And you probably noticed I used a weird fingering for that D as well. Sometimes when you're very soft, or sometimes when you want to trill to a D or into an E flat, we have some alternative fingerings that we can actually use these palm keys for. Now you may be tempted to use the D palm key for that. Don't. It's not going to work. It's not going to sound right. Instead, with your covered C sharp still down, just hit that middle palm key in your left hand. The one that you would usually add to get an E flat, just add that by itself. It's very easy to control that, and you avoid the little slap that you might get if you're going to the D. Or you can just use that covered and really help with that. Now, the next D, I would just use a normal fingering so we can do that trill properly. I hope that these few pointers have really helped you in getting a good handle on this first etude. And if you have any questions, any comments, anything, get a hold of me at andrew.allen@mwsu.edu, Midwestern State University. Or feel free to hit me up through YouTube or through my website or anything else, allensax.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and good luck.